Hello friends, greetings of the day. Welcome to the online session of research methodology. Friends, this online session on research methodology is titled as Research Methodology and Introduction. Now in this particular video, by the end of this video, you will be able to understand what is research and the characteristics of good research. So let's start with our first topic, that is what is research. So first of all, here we want to clarify that what is the meaning of research. First of all, let us understand the basic definition of research. Research is the process of finding solutions to a problem after a thorough study and analysis of the situational factors. So, the definition says that research is a process of finding solutions. Whenever there has arisen a problem, and in order to find out the solution of that particular problem, we go through a thorough analysis or thorough study of all those factors that has created that particular problem. After making the study and analysis of all those situational factors, we will be able to find out the solution to a particular problem. So the whole process of finding out the solution to a particular problem, that whole process will be considered as a research. Say for example, the sales of a particular product is declining and the management of the company has decided to find out the solution why the sales has been declining. So declining sales is a problem. The management will appoint the researchers and the researchers will follow the process by which they will find out all those factors that has affected the sales of the product, and on the basis of all those situational factors they will come to a solution. They will come to a conclusion first that why the sales has been declining, and on the basis of that conclusion they will try to find out the solution of this particular problem. So the whole process through which the management has gone, this process is known as research. Another definition which is given by Redman and Mori. According to them, research is a systematized effort to gain new knowledge. So research is a systematized effort to gain a new knowledge. Now, when you want to receive the knowledge related to a particular branch of the universe, in that case, you will try to identify several things, and the efforts that you are making for gaining the knowledge particularly for that particular branch, the efforts made by you will be considered as the research. Say for example, you want to gain the knowledge related to the management or economics, or you want to gain knowledge in the field of finance, or you want to gain knowledge in the field of accounts. Whatever be the field, the systematized effort to gain knowledge in that particular field will be considered as the research. This is said by Redman and Mori. Another definition which is written in the Advanced Learners Dictionary of Current English. According to this dictionary, research is a careful investigation. First of all, they have said that research is a careful investigation or inquiry of what? Inquiry specially through search for new facts in any branch of knowledge. So whatever be the branch of knowledge, whether it is accounting, it is finance, it is economics, or it is social science, whatever be the branch of knowledge, in that particular branch, when you try to search the facts, that effort or investigation for finding out the facts is considered as the research. Say for example, you want to identify the consumer behavior related to a particular product. So the consumer behavior is a particular branch, and that particular branch may fall into the economics or may fall into the marketing. So in the field of marketing, you want to identify the behavior of consumers, and in order to identify, you may make investigation or inquiry of several consumers. Now this whole process of making investigation or inquiry, that will be considered as research. Another definition which is given by John W. Best. According to him, research is a more systematic activity. First of all, he has said that research is a more systematic activity directed towards discovery and the development of an organized body of knowledge. Now, in order to identify the development in a particular body of knowledge, the efforts or the systematic activity made by the researcher will be considered as the research work. Say for example, you want to identify the savings behavior of female. Now savings behavior of female is a body of knowledge related to the finance. Now in order to identify this behavior of the females, you make the discovery or you make systematic investigation in that particular area, in that particular branch. The investigation or discovery made by you will be considered as a research, because after the investigation you may come to the conclusion or you may come to the judgment that what developments have taken place in the savings behavior of the female. So in order to find out these developments, the whole process which has been carried out, that process will be known as research. Now let us understand the characteristics of good research. Now if you want to become a good researcher, these characteristics must be present in your research work. So let us understand these characteristics one by one. The first characteristic is the clearly defined purpose. First of all, if you have started the research work, your purpose of research must be clearly defined. ગુજરાતીમાં એક વાત ખાસ કહેવાય છે કે તમે કોઈ પણ કામની શરૂઆત કરો તો એ કામની શરૂઆત કરતા પહેલા એ કામનો ધ્યેય તમારે નક્કી કરી લેવો જોઈએ. So in the same manner, your purpose must be clear. If you have not clearly defined your purpose of the research, in that case you will not be able to come to any conclusion. So the whole process of research will be the wastage. So in order to come to the conclusion or in order to make your research fruitful, first of all you must clearly define the purpose of your research work. Another characteristic of a good research work is detailed research process. જો તમે તમારા રિસર્ચને એક્સલન્ટ રિસર્ચ બનાવવા માંગતા હોય, ગુડ રિસર્ચ બનાવવા માંગતા હોય, તો એવા કેસમાં તમારે તમારા રિસર્ચ માટેની પ્રોસેસ છે એ પહેલેથી ડિટેલ્ડમાં ડિફાઇન કરી રાખવી જોઈએ. The detailed process means all these steps must be followed in a sequential format, and if all these steps are followed in a sequential format, then and then your research work will be considered as a complete and a good research work. So the detailed research process must be prescribed must be identified well in advance, and on the basis of that defined research process, the researcher must go according to all the steps which are defined in the whole process. So the process must be followed, and if the process is followed, then and then the research work will be successful. Another characteristic of a good research work is thoroughly planned design. Thoroughly planned design, here we mean that you must have planned the whole research work in the timeline. That means you must have planned out that when will your research work will start, what will be your first milestone, what will be your second milestone, at the end of the second milestone what you will have achieved, or what kind of conclusions must have been identified, what will be your third milestone, and so on, and what will be the timeline of completion of your whole research work. So it must be properly designed out, uh, what the starting point of the research work and the end point of the research work must be clearly defined or designed well in advance. If this planning has been done well in advance, it will give you a motivation to complete your research work in the allotted time period or the defined time period. So the planning is an important factor of a good research work. Then your research work must follow high ethical standards. So there are so many things which involve the decisions related to the ethical or unethical. Several things in the research work will be considered as unethical, or the other things will be considered as ethical. So you must have follow the ethical standards. Say for example, copying and pasting the ready-made material in your research work is considered as an unethical activity. So that must not be done. If you have plagiarized the content from the book which is ready-made available, that is considered as an unethical standard. So you must follow the ethical standards related to the research work. During the investigation, you should follow these ethical standards. Say for example, if you want to identify or if you want to make the research related to the behavior of the consumers, the questions that you ask must also be very much ethical, and the respondents must also feel that the answers given by them will remain strictly confidential. So keeping the responses or keeping the feedback very much confidential is also considered as an ethics of research work. So these kind of ethics, like keeping the feedback confidential, keeping the identity of the respondents confidential, these all are certain ethical standards that must be followed by a good researcher. So it must be highly ethical. Then the researcher must know his limitations or the limitations of the research work, and the limitations must be addressed well in advance. That means the researcher must know that what are the limitations of his research work. The limitations related to the resources can be possible, limitations about the time can be possible, limitations related to the feedback or limitations related to the resources of the information may be there. All these kind of limitations may be there during the research work. So the researcher must have identified these limitations, and he must have properly addressed them. That means the solutions related to these limitations must be uh, well in advance defined, and on the basis of that the research work must be executed. So the limitations of the research must be addressed in advance. And it must be having adequate analysis. Incomplete analysis, or the analysis which is not identifying any conclusion or which is not giving any kind of findings, that kind of analysis will be considered as an inadequate analysis. So the researcher must have done adequate analysis so that the proper conclusions, proper judgments, and proper findings can be found out through the research work. If the analysis is inadequate, in that case, it will happen that you may come to the wrong judgments or you may come to the wrong conclusions. So the researcher must have completed the thorough analysis of whatever the data has been received during the process of data collection, and all the data which is collected during the data collection process, that data must be analyzed by all the possible tools available with the researcher. If all these possible tools are not applied on the data, in that case, that analysis will be considered as an inadequate analysis, and such kind of inadequate analysis may uh, drive you to the wrong judgments. So the analysis must be adequate. And then the presentation of your research work must be unambiguous. Unambiguous, ambiguous મતલબ કે જે અનક્લિયર છે, બરાબર? તો એમ્બિગ્યુઅસ ન હોવું જોઈએ, મતલબ અનક્લિયર ન હોવું જોઈએ. ઇટ મસ્ટ બી અનએમ્બિગ્યુઅસ, ઇટ મસ્ટ બી ક્લિયર પ્રેઝન્ટેશન. મતલબ કે રિસર્ચની પૂરેપૂરી કન્ટેન્ટ છે એ વાંચનાર માણસને પહેલી જ વખતમાં સમજાઈ જાય, વ્યવસ્થિત રીતે સમજાઈ જાય એ પ્રકારે એનું પ્રેઝન્ટેશન થયેલું હોવું જોઈએ. If it is ambiguous presentation, again it will create confusion in the mind of the readers. So the researcher must present his research work not from the viewpoint of himself but from the viewpoint of the readers. It must be easy to understand for the readers. So unambiguous presentation of the research work is a very much important characteristic of a good research work. And then the conclusions justified. At the end of the whole research process, the researcher may have arrived at some conclusions. The conclusions that are arrived at by the researcher must be justified. That means તમે રિસર્ચ વર્કની અંદર છેલ્લે એવું લખ્યું છે કે વી કમ ટુ ધીસ કન્ક્લુઝન, તો તમે જે કન્ક્લુઝન ડિરાઈવ કર્યું એ કન્ક્લુઝન શું કામ ડિરાઈવ કર્યું એનું જસ્ટિફિકેશન એ પણ તમારે ત્યાં આપવું પડશે. જો પ્રોપર જસ્ટિફિકેશન નથી આપ્યું તો કદાચ એવું બનશે કે એ રીડરના માઇન્ડમાં કન્ફ્યુઝન ક્રિએટ કરશે કે આ બાબતનું કન્ક્લુઝન આવું શું કામ. That means you must have justified all your viewpoints, why you have arrived to that particular conclusion, what was your viewpoint, or what were your assumptions and presumptions, and on the basis of what assumptions and presumptions you have arrived at that particular conclusion, that must be justified, that must be clearly described in your research work. And next one is credentials. Credentials matlab giving proper citation of all those resources from which you have taken the references for your research work. મતલબ કે તમે તમારા રિસર્ચ દરમિયાન જે કોઈ પણ પ્રકારના જર્નલ્સ, મેગેઝિન્સ, ન્યૂઝપેપર્સ કે થીસિસ કે ડેઝર્ટેશન્સ રેફર કર્યા છે અને એને બેઝ તરીકે રાખીને તમે તમારું રિસર્ચ વર્ક કમ્પ્લીટ કર્યું છે, તો the credentials must be given to all those authors, those who have helped you in your research work. મતલબ કે તમારા રિસર્ચ વર્કને અકમ્પ્લિશ કરવા માટે, તમારા કન્ક્લુઝન્સને, તમારા ફાઇન્ડિંગ્સ સુધી પહોંચવા માટે તમે જે કોઈ પણ પ્રકારના બુક્સ કે મટીરિયલ્સનો યુઝ કર્યો છે, these must be properly cited, they must be given proper reference, in the bibliography or the footnotes or the endnotes, wherever it is required, એ દરેક જગ્યાએ એનું proper citation હોવું જોઈએ. That is the point credential. If you have not properly cited those resources, it means that you have plagiarized the content. તો એ plagiarism ન થવું જોઈએ. Proper citation is required. So that's all related to the research and related to the characteristics of research. Thank you for now. Have a nice day. Goodbye. Now, in order to prepare this presentation, we have used the images, and these are the sources of the images that are used in making this presentation. So thank you for now.